But a lot of the stuff he was saying, because I don't live in that world, people think because, oh, Shannon, you live in Hollywood, you must have heard, you must have been. No, bro. Gil, I mean, I remember walking out and CJ, the producer of the show, he's like, Shannon, this is gonna blow up the internet.
The storm around Shannon Sharpe just keeps growing, and let us tell you, it's not just the allegations pulling him under. It's the sheer weight of the backlash, the whispers, the cracks in his carefully constructed image. From the outside, Shannon had it all. A Hall of Fame football career, a slick presence on television, and a charisma that charmed millions. But behind the polished exterior, a darker narrative has started to unfold. One that paints a far more complicated and far more troubling picture of the man the public thought they knew.
Alrighty, y'all. So the Shannon Sharpe ESPN does he still keep his job conversation is beginning to, I was gonna say beginning to happen, but it's been happening, but I think now it's beginning to get louder because of different things that Attorney Busby has released, including the audios. So right now the conversation is, why is Shannon Sharpe still able to be?
Let's start with the audio. That explosive clip leaked just days ago, allegedly capturing Shannon threatening a woman with words no one ever expects to hear from a public figure of his stature. If you say that word one more time, I'm gonna choke the life out of you when I see you. The words hit like a grenade, reverberating across social media and sparking outrage from all corners. And the fallout? Immediate. The audio wasn't some grainy, inconclusive snippet. It was raw, clear, and chilling. The woman's voice on the other end, pleading, saying she didn't want to be harmed, only for the alleged Sharpe voice to coldly reply, "Yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter." Fans were stunned. Critics were ruthless. And Shannon? He called it a shakedown, an orchestrated plot by attorney Tony Busby and his client to smear his name. But here's where it gets murkier. Busby, known for taking on high-profile cases against some of the biggest names in the industry, hit back hard. He released more details, more allegations, and more evidence, claiming this wasn't about money, it was about accountability. Suddenly, this wasn't just a scandal, it was a full-blown war. And if you thought the audio was bad, the text messages took it to another level. Messages allegedly sent between Shannon and his accuser painted a picture of a relationship that was anything but ordinary. Requests for control, for submission, for scenarios that blurred the line between roleplay and reality. The texts weren't subtle, and they weren't easy to read. One message, attributed to the accuser, asked for Shannon to treat her like an object, while another, allegedly from Shannon, demanded her presence on his terms and his schedule. The defense argued these were consensual exchanges, part of a private relationship. But the accuser's attorney fired back, claiming the dynamic was manipulative, controlling, and, at times, violent.
And that the was about handcuffs, choking, putting on dog collars. Do you get those at Petco?
Then came the bombshell lawsuit, a jaw-dropping demand for compensation that sent shockwaves through the sports and entertainment world. $50 million in damages. That's not just a lawsuit, that's a statement. The accuser, identified in court documents as Jane Doe, alleged a pattern of coercion and threats that escalated to the point of no return. In her words, she endured emotional and physical turmoil during their time together, culminating in incidents that she says left her traumatized and broken. Shannon, for his part, denies every word, labeling the entire case as a desperate attempt to extort him. But let's not forget the history here. This isn't the first time Shannon's name has been dragged into controversy. Old allegations have resurfaced, painting a pattern that's hard to ignore. Back in 2010, another woman accused him of misconduct, a case that led to a restraining order and temporarily sidelined him from his career. While that case eventually faded from the headlines, it's back now. And it's raising serious questions about whether these recent allegations are part of a larger pattern of behavior. And then there's the choking incident at FS1, a workplace controversy that, while officially dismissed as playful, is now being re-examined with fresh eyes. Was it really just harmless fun? Or was it a glimpse into something deeper, something darker?
On Easter Sunday, a lawsuit was filed in state court in Nevada against Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe because he has become such a massive media star, especially in the past few years. The lawsuit is going to attract.
And if you think Shannon's troubles are limited to the courtroom, think again. The cultural backlash has been just as brutal. Enter Charleston White, the ever-controversial commentator who's made it his personal mission to tear Shannon down. Charleston didn't hold back. unleashing a tirade that accused Shannon of being a sellout, a man who abandoned his roots for fame and fortune. Charleston's words were scathing, calling Shannon's credibility into question, and digging into old wounds that Shannon probably thought had long since healed. He mocked Shannon's past statements about avoiding elevators with women, throwing it back in his face as a hypocritical stance given the current allegations. And let's not forget Charleston's accusation that Shannon had turned his back on the very community that once lifted him up, choosing corporate approval over authenticity.
For one, he too mean to the I already knew he boy too mean to the I keep telling y'all, I'm the favorite uncle. I'm the uncle that they ain't got no dirt on me. They trying to throw dirt on me. They've been trying to do everything. Now, he been kind of been hating on me a little bit.
But it's not just Charleston, it's the fans, the industry insiders, even Shannon's so-called friends. Where are they now? The ones who stood beside him on red carpets and smiled for the cameras? They've all gone silent. It's as if the moment the allegations hit, Shannon became untouchable, a pariah in the very world he once dominated. The whispers are growing louder, the questions more pointed. Did Shannon really believe his fame and influence could shield him from consequences? And if so, how did he miscalculate so badly? And then there's the media circus, adding fuel to an already raging fire. Every new detail, every leaked message, every public statement is dissected, debated, and spun into 100 different narratives. Shannon's own attempts to control the story have only seemed to backfire. His insistence that the lawsuit is a targeted attack has been met with skepticism, especially given the mounting evidence being presented by Busby and his client. And Shannon's counterclaims of defamation? They've done little to shift the focus away from the core allegations.
To whom much is given, much is required, right? And once you've reached a certain stature, it's like the old folks always used to tell you, boy, don't let that money go to your head.
What's happening here isn't just a scandal, it's a reckoning. Shannon Sharpe, the man who once seemed untouchable, is now facing a crisis that threatens to unravel everything he's built. And the worst part? This is just the beginning. The deeper you dig, the more questions arise. What else is hiding beneath the surface? How far does this really go? And who's going to come forward next? Because if there's one thing this scandal has proven, it's that when the first domino falls, the rest aren't far behind. And just when it seemed the chaos couldn't spiral further, the cracks in Shannon Sharpe's world began to split wide open. This wasn't just a storm brewing around allegations or lawsuits. It was a deep cultural reckoning digging into his very identity, exposing the delicate balance he tried to maintain between two worlds. The question wasn't only about the accusations anymore, it was about the man himself and the decisions that brought him here. How did someone who once stood as a symbol of resilience, a narrative of triumph over adversity, turn into a public spectacle, his name dragged through the mud by voices from every angle?
And now, a lot of times people just are who they are. And you're looking at Shannon, his brand has never really been anything that said he might not be into some of the things that we're learning, right? You could go back to the IG Live, or you could listen to some of the things that he promotes as sponsors of his show, or just certain ways he talks about women.
For starters, Shannon's legal team might have thought releasing those text messages would turn the tide, but if anything, it set off an even bigger firestorm. The messages painted a picture of a relationship that was at best unconventional and at worst a toxic power dynamic waiting to implode. But here's the kicker. Those texts weren't the only messages floating around. Sources close to the case began whispering about additional exchanges that hadn't been made public yet. Messages that could allegedly reveal an even darker side to the dynamic. Shannon's camp scrambled to control the narrative, but the damage was done. The public wasn't just questioning his innocence, they were questioning his judgment, his character, and his ability to navigate the very fame that once elevated him. And then there was the lawsuit, the 50 million bombshell that set the internet ablaze. But what most people don't know is how meticulously this case was built. Tony Busby, the high-profile lawyer representing the accuser, has a reputation for being relentless, and this time was no different. Behind closed doors, Busby was reportedly assembling a case so airtight it could suffocate even the most ironclad defense. Witnesses were allegedly lined up, timelines cross-referenced, and every shred of evidence combed through with surgical precision. And here's the kicker. Rumors began swirling that there might be more than one accuser waiting in the wings. It was as if Shannon's world wasn't just collapsing, it was being dismantled brick by brick.
The news, Shannon Sharpe. So you guys remember that video that Shannon Sharpe was saying was going to release?
Yes,
That
it did.
No.
Oh.
But it wasn't just the legal system closing in. The cultural backlash was reaching a fever pitch, and Shannon's carefully curated image as a relatable, straight-suiting personality was unraveling faster than anyone could have anticipated. Charleston White, always ready to pour gasoline on a fire, doubled down on his attacks, accusing Shannon of not just selling out, but actively betraying the community that once celebrated him. And let's be real, many people were nodding along. Charleston's words weren't just sharp, they were surgical, aimed directly at the heart of Shannon's identity. He painted a picture of a man who'd traded authenticity for acceptance, who'd swapped the grit of his roots for the gloss of corporate approval. And while Shannon stayed quiet on those accusations, the silence spoke volumes. The industry, too, seemed to be turning its back. Shannon's departure from ESPN, though framed as temporary, reeked of damage control. Insiders began leaking whispers of tension behind the scenes, executives reportedly scrambling to distance themselves from the controversy, colleagues privately questioning whether Shannon's presence had become too much of a liability. And then there was the chatter about his so-called friends in the celebrity world. The same people who were once eager to share a spotlight with Shannon were now nowhere to be found. Red carpet smiles and Instagram shoutouts had been replaced with radio silence, leaving Shannon to fend for himself in an increasingly hostile environment.
Another interesting thing, too, and this is why I said, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team after this came out. We would have never known about that so-called video if it wasn't for Shannon Sharpe.
Yes. Yeah.
Shannon jumped out there and revealed that video existed. And he did that for no reason because they wasn't even planning on putting it up.
And let's talk about the fans. Social media, once a space where Shannon reigned supreme with his witty commentary and larger-than-life personality, had turned into a battlefield. The comment sections under his posts were flooded with a mix of outrage, disappointment, and perhaps most painfully, mockery. Memes circulated at lightning speed, turning his once iconic persona into a punchline. Every move he made, every statement he released was dissected and scrutinized, with even his most loyal supporters struggling to reconcile their admiration for the man with the mounting allegations against him. It wasn't just the fans who were dissecting Shannon's every move. Former colleagues and insiders within the sports media landscape began to whisper about his behind-the-scenes behavior. One anonymous producer claimed that Shannon's larger-than-life personality didn't always translate well off-camera. Allegedly, he was known for moments of tension and outbursts during production meetings, clashing with staff over creative decisions, and sometimes taking disagreements to a personal level. While none of these claims were officially documented, the timing of these revelations has only added fuel to the fire, painting a picture of a man who may have been battling private demons long before the public ever knew.
Shannon Sharpe says he's temporarily stepping away from ESPN in the wake of a $50 million lawsuit accusing him of rape. A woman filed suit against Sharpe on Sunday, accusing him of raping her twice.
And then there's the lingering question about Shannon's ties to the corporate world, a world that now seems eager to distance itself from him. Multiple sponsorship deals, including one with a prominent fitness brand, reportedly began reevaluating their relationship with Shannon in light of the allegations. While no official statements have been released, sources close to the situation suggested that the brands are taking a wait-and-see approach, carefully monitoring the unfolding legal battle. The stakes couldn't be higher for Shannon. These partnerships weren't just lucrative, they were a cornerstone of his public persona, reinforcing the image of a disciplined, aspirational figure who rose above his tough beginnings. Losing them could deal a devastating blow to both his finances and his public standing. Perhaps most shocking of all is the speculation about who might have leaked the now infamous audio. Some believe it was the accuser herself, as part of a calculated legal strategy to sway public opinion. But others suggest a far more troubling theory, that someone within Shannon's own circle may have played a role. Could it have been a disgruntled former employee? A rival within the industry? The idea that such damning evidence might have come from someone who once had Shannon's trust only deepens the intrigue and raises even more questions about the fragility of his inner circle. Trust, it seems, is a commodity Shannon is quickly running out of.
Tony Busby says this is key evidence in our case against Mr. Sharpe, so it will not be coming out. We will not be leaking this.
And saying basically it's going to come out during the trial.
Right.
If there's a trial.
If there's a trial, it will come out, which to me sounds like he's still dangling it over Shannon's head to say, we can meet, we can settle this, or we can go forward into a trial, and then the video is going to come out.
But here's where it gets even messier. While Shannon was busy fighting fires on every front, new allegations began to surface. Not as formal complaints, but as whispers, as stories shared anonymously online or passed around in industry circles. A former colleague from his days at FS1 alleged that Shannon's behavior behind the scenes wasn't always as polished as it appeared on camera. And while the specifics of those claims remained murky, the implications were clear. This wasn't just about one lawsuit or one accuser. This was about a pattern, a history, a legacy that was now being called into question at every turn. And what about that leaked audio? It wasn't just the words themselves that shook people. It was the tone, the delivery, the unmistakable sense of control and dominance that radiated from every syllable. For many, it wasn't just about what was said, it was about what it revealed. The audio became a flashpoint, a symbol of everything the accuser claimed Shannon represented. And while his legal team tried to frame it as part of a consensual dynamic, the court of public opinion wasn't buying it. The hashtag Chokegate started trending, and the memes only got darker, more biting, more damning.
Essence from Atlanta, him refusing to look at the evidence just gives me the impression that he wants plausible deniability, and maybe the evidence should be released so that way he does not deny his actions. I mean, if that was me, I would definitely want to look at the evidence to see what I did and did not do so I can maintain my innocence.
But perhaps the most telling part of this entire saga is how quickly the industry moved to fill the void left by Shannon's absence. Names were already being floated as potential replacements, with some insiders even suggesting that Shannon's temporary departure might become permanent. And while Shannon's team insisted he'd be back by the start of the NFL season, the reality was clear. His position, his reputation, his entire career was hanging by a thread. So where does this leave Shannon Sharpe? Is he the victim of a calculated smear campaign, as his team claims, or is he a man finally being held accountable for years of unchecked behavior? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the murky middle. But one thing's for sure, this story is far from over. With every new detail, every leaked message, every whispered allegation, the stakes only get higher. And as the world watches this once untouchable figure try to claw his way back, the question remains: can Shannon Sharpe ever recover from this? Or has the game he played for so long finally outplayed him? What do you think? Is this a case of justice catching up? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the scandals that keep us talking. Trust us, this ride is just getting started.